There's a big event coming up on Saturday, June 29th called a Summer's Palette, put on by the Ashford Area Arts Council. And I'm joined this morning by Steve Gerling from the Ashford Area Arts Council to talk about that. Steve, good to have you. Thanks for coming in for today. Tell me about the Ashford Area Arts Council. I assume you're a member of it?
I am. Thanks for having us here today, Wayne. I am a member out there. It's an organization that is obviously there to promote the arts in pretty much of any way, shape, or form. We've been around since about 2017. We have, about 60 members all told.
And as a member, are you an artist as well?
I am an artist. I have a degree in fine arts from UConn from about 1,000 years ago. My primary occupation then was in the sculpture end of things. I spent several years early on doing relief wood carving. Eventually I wound up having to go out and get a real job and all of that, but since retirement I am trying to catch up now, doing primarily painting and drawing and pretty much of any medium I can lay my hands on. A little fond of watercolor more than other things, but oils and drawing, and messed around a little bit with some home-fired ceramics, things like that. Pretty much anything I can play with.
What was it that drew you to fine arts in your formative years?
I think as a kid, I always liked making things in any way, shape, or form. We didn't have much of an art program in Putnam at that point, but I still just, anything artsy or craftsy, I was all over it. Eventually, when I got to UConn, one of those little affairs of the heart, I had a friend who was a theater major, and I was looking for a little help with some of her set designing and building models for it, and it was like, boy, I really started getting into this end of it, that whole creative end of it, and eventually found out as much as I liked wildlife and everything else, I liked the creative end of things more, and transferred into the School of Fine Arts. And away we went.
When you were a kid, were you a paint-by-numbers guy?
Not very much.
That's about as far as I got.
Yeah, we had kind of rinky-dink art classes up through about the 4th grade, where a teacher would come in once a week and he would show something and we would all copy it. And then in high school, all of the boys were required to take 2 years of mechanical drawing, but that was it for the art background.
Like drafting?
Yeah, exactly. But I would do things like, make neckerchief slides and Boy Scouts and, cut myself up carving. I remember faking a petrified dinosaur egg for a science project in 6th grade. And I felt terribly guilty because the teacher actually believed initially it was a real one. And I felt, oh God, what have I done?
What about,
it was very flattering.
What about whittling?
Whittling, again, it was, I remember my father carving a neckerchief slide for
Well, that's what made me think about it.
Yeah. And I was just fascinated. It's like, how can a human being, carve something like that out of a piece of wood? And my attempts were not quite that good, but, he was a natural, but I just kind of poked along and tried not to cut myself too often.
Now, maybe for the uninitiated, we should explain. I mean, I know it, you know it. I was an Eagle Scout. How far did you get in Scouts?
I got as far as Life Scout, but
that was almost Eagle.
Almost Eagle, but then, high school caught up to me and other things were fun. I stayed through it all the way. We had an Explorer post. We enjoyed that, and eventually, because I enjoyed it so much, I wound up being a Scout leader for about 20 years. So that was a blast.
Well, I can top that story, because my mother married my Scoutmaster, and he's the reason I moved from California to Connecticut.
Oh, cool.
How's that?
That's a better story.
Now, going back to the whittling, whittling is an art form. Explain to the people who don't know what that word is, what it means.
Whittling is, I think when you picture some old guy sitting on a bench out in front of a general store with a stick and a knife, it is sculpting something out of a piece of wood.
Like a neckerchief slide.
Like a neckerchief slide or a human figure. And, it's the only difference between that and fine art carving is the difference between fiddling and violin playing. If you're fiddling, then you can drink beer with it. But if it's a violin, you can, drink wine with it. but the two things are basically the same.
All right, on to the A material here this morning. Your organization, the Ashford Area Arts Council, getting ready for an event called A Summer's Palette Art and Gardens. What do visitors find there?
They find about 25 artists displaying work on all ranges of the art spectrum, from painting and drawing to wood turning. I believe we're going to have our poet laureate is going to be doing a presentation. There will be music presented, and all of it is this beautiful grounds of the Westford Hill Distillers out in Ashford. It's a beautiful farm that is pretty much unchanged since its start in around 1711, as far back as I have it. And it always stayed as a subsistence farm. It wasn't a dairy farm or anything else. And it is just this beautiful rolling piece of property. The Chady family bought it around 1919 and has continued since then. And apparently they were also instrumental in planting spectacular gardens. They had a great fondness for unusual trees. It's like an arboretum out there. And you could not ask for a nicer venue on a summer afternoon than this. And they're basically the first niche distillery operation in southern New England that I know of. They've been around for about 15 years. They initially started distilling eau de vie, and now they've branched into brandies and some vodka, and they have a beautiful little place where you can sit and sip some of the fruits of their labors. But the show itself is in its third year. Apparently, it was pretty popular last year. It's a one-day only show. Last year was our second year, and it started out with pouring rain, and people were lined up to come in, which really floored all of us. So it's a great opportunity for local artists to display what they do. It's very hard to be an artist and not have any sort of outlet to show the work you do. So.
And maybe because of last year's rain, now there's a rain date for this year's event, which, by the way, the event is scheduled for a week from Saturday, June 29th. But now there's a rain date, June 30th.
June 30th is the rain date. Right now we're staying with one day. Maybe at some point we'll go to 2 days, or a lot of us are pushing for 2 days. But yeah, we've got 1 day to fall back on there.
Now, if I go to a Summer's Palette, Art and Gardens, will I be seeing the artwork of Steve Gerling?
You will be. You won't be seeing any of the wood carving, but you will be seeing a lot of drawing and watercolors and oils as well. Like I say, I dabble pretty much in everything I can lay my hands on. So, but there'll be a wide range. We'll have some jewelers. We have a couple of potters will be out there. A lady that does work with fused glass. There's just a huge range of media that people work in that will be on display. One of our musical performers, Mike South, also builds guitars, and you will see and hear some of his artwork there.
Are you still looking for volunteers for this program and/or more exhibitors for this program?
I do not know that we could probably accommodate exhibitors, and we can always accommodate people willing to volunteer for it. We're going to be tap dancing pretty fast for volunteers, but I also think that there is still space for a couple of exhibitors.
And you talked about some of the performance art as well. Tell me more about the kind of music in the form of art that'll be presented.
Most of the people who will be there are in a bit of a folky vein. We have had a couple of people who play in the jazz end of things, but it'll be mostly kind of folky. One of the different ones will be the Babcock Cornet Band, which is the oldest organized cornet band of its type, I think, in the country. They've been around for something like 115 years. And they do a lot of popular things. They'll do everything from what you would traditionally view as brass band music to contemporary arrangements of all sorts of music. It's a very interesting sound to them. And that's, as I recall, they're about a 15 or 20 member group.
And again, this event coming up a week from Saturday, June 29th. What have you got for hours on that? When is the show
That'll
taking
be from
place?
10 to 4.
And where exactly is Westford Hill Distillers?
That is at 196 Chady Road in Ashford. It's a windy back road, and as I said, it's an absolutely beautiful venue out there. People can feel free to wander around, listen to music, stop in, have a bite to eat, sample some of there'll be a cocktail invented specifically for us. That's one of the little treats they do out there, is they will create cocktails for occasions. And those don't disappoint. So.
Steve, I'm sure every community has its stable of great artists, but as I talk to people around here, we just had the Art and Garden Tour, which some of your people were involved in as well. It just seems to me that our area here in Northeast Connecticut has a lot of really good creative. There's a great arts community.
It is a terrific community. One of the things I've found since retirement is I have a background in art. In fact, after I graduated, I was involved with the gallery at Jorgensen for several years. But I think it took being retired and actually swinging into the active art world itself. I'm becoming aware of the tremendous amount of talent out there, and how many people, what a concentration we have of it in this little corner of the state. There's just amazing amount of talent out there.
Will some of the art that's on display at this event be on sale?
Oh, yeah. I think most people will have work for sale. It's actually proved to be, at least for me, it's proved to be a fairly viable outlet. I was pleasantly surprised at how well I did last year. Last year was the first year I showed. One of the I should add, one of the little benefits we have if people want to try their hand at things, we also have plein air painting available if people want to try a small canvas and a brush and just go out and get inspired by the landscape and the gardens out there.
Has it got the numbers like I mentioned earlier?
No numbers. You're going to be on your own for the numbers. You're going to have to make up your own numbers with your own colors of paint, but all of these supplies will be there: brushes, paints, canvases. And if somebody wanted to try that, or even experienced artists would have a ball with it. As I say, it's my first year. That's all I did. I did plein air painting out there just for show and tell, and really inspiring place.
Should I come hungry?
Oh, you definitely should. We've got a couple of food trucks that'll be out there, and they're tasty ones. And as I say, there will be both tasty cocktails and soft drinks as well available.
What's the impact for local artists to have an opportunity to market their work at an event like this?
It is a wonderful opportunity. It's so hard for so many people that do not have adequate studio space, and even finding gallery space these days is very, very hard for artists. So to have such a good venue to put work out there and have people who are actually coming for a lot of them are coming with the intention of buying as opposed to just looking. So it's a real boon to any artist to have that. Most of us are always looking for a new outlet to show work, and it doesn't get too much better than this locally.
Let's just pick a couple of artists at random out of here, including Sue Muldoon, who creates wearable art and functional weavings.
Mm-hmm. Sue is mostly a lot of handbags, vests, scarves, and so forth. I'm not really terribly familiar with her work, but I have seen it, and it's the type of thing that it'd be hard not to want to wear.
Elizabeth Buddington, a dedicated curator and digital archivist specializing in glass plate negatives from the 1870s to the 1930s.
Deer in the headlights. This is a new one on me. I don't know whether she was just added, but I'm already wanting to see this.
With a passion for preserving history, she has meticulously digitized and archived her extensive collection, ensuring that these precious artifacts are accessible for future generations. Marilyn McCooch, a talented jewelry maker, part of a summer's palette.
Oh, she is absolutely sweet lady, and she does these amazing wire jewelry, which it's much more sophisticated than it sounds. And she just has this huge stash of semi-precious stones, minerals, and everything else, and she just almost weaves these into rings and brooches and necklaces. And she does it very artistically, and she's happy to share it. And in fact, she is one that we are leaning on very hard to do an actual workshop, probably in the fall. She'll be spending a full day doing that. And we do offer those workshops to the general public. So we've got her slated for the fall.
And just one more, Summer's Palette also with the work of Allison Charlante, a full-time artist living in Woodstock.
Mm-hmm. Allison does these things that look like dot mosaics almost. Doing various surfaces, these brightly colored patterns of round dots of very pure color that get very lyrical, very almost like an Indian art or something. What's the word I want here? But her patterns are, I wouldn't even say pointillist. They just become works of their own in terms of patterns in abstract works of their own.
She paints on rocks and canvas using dottilism technique. Mm-hmm. And if you want to know what that means, you can go to A Summer's Palette, week from Saturday, June 29th, rain date, June 30th. It runs from 10 until 4 on the grounds of Westford Hill Distillers, located at 196 Chatey Road, Chatey, in Ashford. Is it free admission?
It is free admission, but we suggest donations. People are welcome to donate or not. I will say they're also going to be prizes. A lot of the artists are donating various works that will be done on a drawing basis. We almost have a scavenger hunt kind of thing where people can carry around cards and get them stamped at individual booths. And winners of these artworks will be drawn from those.
Sounds good. It's all at A Summer's Palette, June 29th, 10 to 4 at Westford Hill Distillers in Ashford. Steve, good to see you. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Steve Gerling is from the Ashford Area Arts Council that's putting on A Summer's Palette. 14 WILI Willimantic and 95.3 FM.